Hey friends, I've got something very, very interesting to share with you. I think will help you in your own endeavors to spread the word, the gospel of Jesus Christ, and to bring many people into the kingdom. We live right now in some unprecedented times. As I've said since 2019, that 2020 will be a truly historic year. I said it on January the 1st when I was walking my dog to some strangers. I said, watch this year. It's going to be historic. And I'm going to tell you right now, today is July the 3rd, and we ain't seen nothing yet. We hadn't really even stepped into the fullness of phase 2. It's going to unfold tomorrow and September, and this whole summer is going to get a lot hotter. We got the fall, we got all that. There are certain things that are in the works, and during this time and during the tumult, people are going to want to know some help. They're going to want to need, they're going to need and be crying out for God, and they're going to specifically need Jesus. And I want you to be able to share Christ with them in a way that's simple, easy for you to do, and highly effective. So I got to tell you a story, because this is something you can use. You can go to my blog.michaelpink.com, and you'll see a posting called The Glove, or you can just simply go to michaelpink.com and look for the blog, and you'll find it that way. But in 2004, as I was, I'd hired a driver with a van, and he took us around the island to show us the sights. Some of you have been to Jamaica. You might remember Dunn's River Falls. It's a glorious place. I loved it. Wonderful time. But as we're going along, he mentions to me that he was a Rastafarian. Now, Rastafarians believe that Haile Selassie, the former emperor of Ethiopia from 1930 to 1974, was in fact God. Well, I enlightened him by telling him that I had a friend who's now gone on to be with the Lord, but he had a friend who was the grandson of Haile Selassie, and he assured us that Haile Selassie was in fact not God. So I think it was a little bit heartbreaking to him to find out that Haile Selassie was a real person and not God and all that. But nonetheless, I said, let me help you understand the difference between a belief system, which people call their religious beliefs a lot of times is a system. Well, keep your systems. I want a relationship with God. But I explained it this way. And this was something I think God gave me, and I thought it was so powerful, and I've shared it many times since then, and the results have been incredible, amazing. In fact, to my knowledge, 100% of the time when I've shared this illustration, people have given their lives to Christ. Now, past performance is no indication of future performance, but I will say it's highly effective. So let me tell you what happened. It was 2004. We're driving along some, road in Jamaica. He's telling me his story, and I said, well, let me explain it to you this way. I said, supposing you're driving along this very road right now, and you saw a glove on the side of the road. And we'll pretend it was fur-lined and nicely stitched, 5 fingers, 4 fingers and a thumb. It had all that. I said, would you assume if you saw that on the side of the road, this beautiful leather glove with the fur lining on the inside and the perfect shape for the human hand, would you assume that it was a freak of nature, that somehow it just, over the course of hundreds or thousands or millions of years, it somehow grew into or became a glove? These things happen. Would you assume that? Or would you assume that maybe because there is a design, there must be a designer, and if there's a designer, somebody made this glove. It didn't just happen by some freak of nature. He said, of course, if I found a glove, I would know for sure that there was a maker, a designer, a creator. Yes, great. I said, now let me ask you a question. I said, consider the human eye. The human eye. Think about it. I said, the human eye is infinitely more complex than a glove. Right? Yeah. I said, do you think it's possible that the eye could have just occurred all by itself? And before you answer that question, the eye is part of the human body. And inside the human body, we have billions of cells that process food, that process light, that process energy, that process information, and do it all in a combined, a collaborative way, if you will, to produce a good outcome. And so would you think that although the glove could not have possibly just happened, that somehow something as complex as that, as the human eye, as the human body, or let me not get started on the brain and its capacities, doesn't it make sense to think that maybe this complexity, your body, my body, your eye, my eye, our brains, were not a result of some freakish accident, a lightning storm hitting some muck and evolving into mankind? Doesn't it make sense that there's a designer? Well, yeah. I said, here's the problem. You see, the glove will never become what it was made to become. It'll never fulfill its purpose until and unless something happens. You see, I explained to him, there's a lot of different kinds of gloves, just like there's different kinds of people or different callings on people's lives. You have baseball gloves, you have oven mitts, you have gardening gloves, you have golf gloves, racing car gloves, you have, I don't know, evening wear gloves. You have all kinds of different kinds of gloves, right? I said, but no matter what kind of glove it is, until and unless somebody puts their hand in it and animates this thing and gives it purpose, hey, there we go, I need to break that off, and function, okay, this glove can never do what it was made to do. It will always remain lifeless and useless on the side of the road until and unless somebody puts their hand in that glove and animates it. Now I said, you and I, we're like the glove. We clearly have a design, a unique design. We are fearfully and wonderfully made. Do you think maybe God has a plan for our lives? Maybe. I said, but the problem is you'll never know it. You'll never know what that plan is. You'll never fulfill the purpose, the calling, the destiny of God for your life until and unless God puts his hand, his spirit in your body and gives it life, gives it meaning, gives it purpose. It'll never happen. You'll be wandering this whole life thinking, what's it all about? What am I supposed to do with my life? What's my calling? And until he puts his hand in your body, his spirit inside you, you'll never know it. And I said, would you like to know what it's like to have God put his spirit in you? Would you like to experience that? He said, well, yeah, I'd like that very much. I said, well, and I shared a few more things with him about becoming a Christian. He said, I'll tell you what, let me think about it overnight. I'll give you my decision in the morning. I said, fair enough, because I hired him for a couple of days, I guess. So the next day I picked him up. He was all smiling. He said, I've made my decision. He decided to follow Christ, and he received Christ and prayed with me, and it was wonderful. Well, years later, I don't remember how many years later it was, I was doing another sales training event for a corporate client. They were a multinational insurance corporation selling life insurance. And they'd hired me to come and train their sales force. Now, they had 45 agents that met in one country and another 30 agents that gathered together from local countries in another market. And so the president was a Christian. He told me on the night before the actual training that he thought about 1/3 of the people might have been Christians. So out of the 45 that I was going to train the next day, 15 he thought might be Christians, 30 probably were not. I'd already been told by his assistant not to bring any Bible verses to the meeting. You know, don't basically share your faith, you know, kind of keep it very subtle, no proselytizing, that kind of thing. This is a multinational corporation after all. Right. But here's the problem. Before I went, after I had accepted it, the Holy Spirit spoke to me. You got to learn how to listen to God, folks. And he said, you know what, Michael? I want to start a fire in that country. He told me the name of the country. I mean, I knew it. I'm not revealing it here. But he said, I want to start a fire in that country. Wow. What does that mean, Lord? And I got the impression he wanted me to actually give an invitation, like an altar call for salvation, in a corporate sales training event for a multinational insurance corporation. So when I got there, I asked the president, I said, I got this feeling that God might want to do something. I said, how do you feel about that? He thought, well, jeepers. I don't know. I guess it'd be all right. Okay. So the next day, I'm doing my sales training and doing what I do and sharing the biblical wisdom God has given me and sharing my stories and opening things up with them. And at the end of it, I told them the story about the glove. I didn't tell them about the guy in Jamaica. I just told them about the glove. I gave them the example. At the end of it, I invited them. I said, if you would like to receive prayer to know what it's like to have God put his spirit in you, then come on forward when we dismiss, and I'll be happy to pray with you. Now, I thought maybe one or two people would respond. I didn't know for sure. And then the president comes up and says, Michael, thank you so much. It's been a great day of training. He addresses the crowd. He says to the salespeople, about 45 of them there, he says, don't forget, now Monday, have your expense reports to Kathy, or I'm making up a name, I don't know, to whoever it was. Give her your expense reports, excuse me, all your travel costs, that kind of thing. And we're going to have a sales meeting. The time will be moved to whenever. The point is, he's giving all this housekeeping kind of stuff, right? There wasn't anybody at the piano playing Just As I Am. There wasn't any emotion going on. He's just cleaning up the loose ends and says, gives all those instructions. Says, by the way, and if anybody wants to pray with Michael, well, he'll be over here at the front. All right, you all dismissed. Have a great weekend. God bless you. He dismissed the meeting. And what happened next absolutely shocked me. The entire sales team of 45 people stood up like one person, and the entire room stepped forward for prayer. The entire room. And they wanted individual prayer because I promised that, because I thought I might have one or two. I ended up praying for each and every single person to receive, almost knocked out on the ground, to receive Christ, to have him put his spirit in them, to give them their destiny and bring them into their destiny and all that kind of stuff. Pray with each one of them. The president sat on the front row and he cried like a baby as he watched me do this thing and his entire sales team come to Christ. Then, when it was all over and we were packing up, the film crew that was there, it was one-man job. He was recording the entire event as part of their sales training. He wanted to have that, I guess, as to show future insurance classes or whatever. That guy, who was just a contractor, said, "Excuse me, before you go, can I get in on that?" And he requested prayer and to receive Christ. Well, I never had anything like that. I'm in a corporate setting. I'm uncomfortable with the idea of giving an invitation to receive Christ in a business setting, but God asked me to do that. I asked the president for permission. He gave me the permission. I did it. A couple days later, we're in the next country. Smaller group, about 30 people there, had exactly the same experience. And at the end, the entire room, every single person came forward to receive Christ, to receive prayer, and to have him come in. That's pretty amazing. One time I had an atheist come into my house. Now, what had happened is I had air conditioning. We're in Florida, right? So you kind of need it almost all year round. But in August, you absolutely need it. And my AC went out. And when it went out, the company said it's going to be, a few days before we can get there or before we can get the parts or whatever it was. And so I was going to stay in a hotel because, in August it's pretty hot here and humid. And so we were going to stay in a hotel for that time. But they recommended, there was a young man who has started a business, and he'll bring portable air conditioning units over to your house and keep your house cool for you. And it was going to cost me about as much as a hotel room. So I thought, maybe that's not a bad idea. Let's do that. And so we did. And as he's coming into my house to unload the equipment and get set up, and he's going past me now through the front door, the Holy Spirit spoke to me and asked me a question. Now, you have to understand, what happens one time is not necessarily something that'll ever happen again. What God speaks to me so often is for that situation, not for sort of the always going forward. But he said to me, as the man went past me, he said, "Michael, how do you feel about having a man into your home and do work for you? And as far as you know, he's going to hell. And you don't say anything to him about that." I said, "Oh, Lord, I don't like that idea. I'll talk to him." I think the installation probably took an hour, maybe less. I don't remember. We had a number of units to put in and so forth. But when we were finished, I thanked him, and he went out the driveway, got in his truck, and he drove away. And I realized that I had absolutely forgotten to bring up the matter of faith to him. I was feeling terrible because I thought, Lord, I meant to do it. So here's what happened. Several days later, when our air conditioning units were fixed and we had AC back on, I was able to call him and pick up his units. And I told the Lord, please give me an opportunity, some avenue to share with him, and I will do so. So as it turns out, he takes everything out of the house, loads it up in his truck, everything's done. He's getting ready to say goodbye, but of course I have to pay. So he sits down at my kitchen table and starts taking down my information. And I haven't had a chance to share with him yet. And then he says to me, "Hey, what do you do for a living?" Here it is. I said, "Well, I teach biblical sales principles for sales and growing a business." And he looked at me, and he was a very nice young man, probably in his early 30s. And he said, "I'm an atheist. I don't believe in God. I only believe in things that I can measure, that I can see and measure. And if you can't see it, if you can't measure it, I don't believe in it." I said, "Really? Wow. That's so interesting. Can I ask you a question?" He said, "Sure." I said, "Are you married?" He said, "Well, yeah." I said, "Do you love your wife?" "Oh, yeah." I said, "Do you have kids?" "Yeah, we have kids, a couple of children." And you love them? Absolutely. Does your wife love you? He said, yeah. I said, how do you know she loves you? I mean, is it because she makes your meals? Because you can get that at a restaurant. Is it because you're physically intimate? Because you don't have to be married to be able to do that if you wanted to, right? So I said, how do you know you love her? And before you answer that, or that she loves you, let me ask you something. If your wife and children were in harm's way, would you risk your life to save them? Without doubt, without a hesitancy at all. I would put my life at risk, at danger, to save my wife and kids. Of course I would. I said, so let me get this straight. You love your wife and children, and they love you, and you know they do. You told me that you know they love you. In fact, you're so sure of it that you would risk your life and put it in jeopardy and give your life to save them. Yes. I said, but you can't see love. You can't quantify it. You can't measure it, but yet you would die for it. Huh. I said, you know, the Bible says that God is love. You can't see him and you can't measure him, but that is God. And I carried on explaining the gospel to him and so forth. And then I told him about the glove and what it was like to put your hand in the glove and have God put his spirit in you and animate you and bring you into your purpose, your destiny, your calling. Needless to say, he said he wanted to receive Christ and he prayed with me. So my friend, I tell you that story because of the times we live in. I got a call a few days ago from a friend, Ron Martinson, out in Arizona. And I had shared the story with him and he said, you need to write that down and send it to me. I got to have that story. Just let me just tell it to you again. I didn't really feel like writing it down, but I did. And I put it on my blog, as I mentioned, at blog.michaelpink.com, the glove, you'll see it. I put it there and I sent it to him. And then I realized, you know, we're in crazy, crazy times. I want as many people as possible to learn about the glove, the illustration, because in my case, dozens and dozens of people have come to Christ just because it made so much sense. And they desired so much to know what it was like for God himself to come inside them, to come inside, to give them purpose, to give them meaning, to bring salvation to them. Friends, I urge you to share this video. Go to my blog, share that. Go into social media, share that. People need to know about Jesus. This is one great way to tell. All right. See you in the next video. God bless you. Thanks for watching. Oh, by the way, you know what you're supposed to do on YouTube? Share, link, ring a bell, all those kinds of things that you do on that comment would be great as well. All right, guys. Thanks. God bless. See you.